All right, I can be ready.
Okay, it's 6 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Call the roll, please.
President, not,
Just a reminder, if you're going to speak into the microphone, please make sure you pull your mask down and speak into the microphone and that the microphone, the little green light's on. Thank you.
President Knobloch,
Here.
Vice President Gillen,
Here.
Treasurer Rayner,
Here.
Secretary Sislo here, Director Becker,
Here.
Director Ertel,
Here.
Director James,
Here.
Director Nutting,
Here.
Director Ramirez,
Here.
Director Tozan,
Here.
Ex officio Marthouse.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes from the meeting of 11/16/20 were approved by email vote on 11/19/20.
Okay, we'll remind you that if anyone wishes to speak tonight on either a non-agenda item or an agenda item, you need to sign up right over here with Mr. James ahead of time. You'll be called at the appropriate time. Okay, next we need to approve or amend the meeting agenda for tonight. Does anyone have any amendments?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mr.
Um,
Becker?
Greg would like for us to talk about talking about the new lease for the golf cart fleet. So I make a motion that we amend to include that.
Does anyone else have any other ones? Ms. Ertel?
I would like to amend the agenda for the House Committee to add 2 line items. One, an ask for funds to repair the 19th hole, and 2, for a name change for the building.
Okay, so we have number 12, which would be the cart lease. Number 13 would be funds to repair the 19th hole. And number 14 would be a name change for what, Ms. Ertel?
The Country Club building.
For the club building. Anyone else?
Yes, I have one. I would, and under the circumstances of the new items brought to the agenda, I would like to withdraw number 4 for the skid steer.
Okay, we're going to move to remove the number 4, the motion to approve the purchase of a track skid steer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any other comments? All in favor of making those changes? Aye. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, it passes. Okay, we have a couple of presentations tonight. First is Mr. Kenneth Jones from Elliott Homes.
Hi, Kenneth Jones with Elliott Homes. They had asked me to kind of just give an update on the development since we've started. So we did start construction and clearing approximately October 1st of 2020. We have cleared the majority of the property because doing our cut and shift, which is dirt moving and things like that, for the next 45 days. They will also be starting the sewer coming from Diamond Head Drive east into the entrance of the subdivision right there after the first of the year.
Excuse me, Mr. Jones, you just said Diamond Head Drive East.
I'm sorry, Diamond Head Drive north. Sorry.
Thank you.
Or west.
West.
Thank you.
Okay.
Diamond Head Drive. How about that? Thanks. Yeah, the current entrance that's already out there. I think that we have had some good weather, and hopefully the winter season and rainy season doesn't slow us down too much, but we've made some good progress so far. So hoping to have lots on the ground second quarter of next year and start selling houses after that. definitely take any questions. Been trying to coordinate as much as possible with the POA and the golf course to make sure that not interfering with golf in any way. Yes, sir.
For those that don't know, how many homes are you building?
So the first phase will be 57 homes. There's a total of 210 approximately planned over 80 some odd acres. But that'll be done in multiple phases over multiple years. The first phase right now, like I said, is 57 lots.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Thank y'all.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a report on the focus group.
Thank you. In your package this evening, the cover page has on it a display of various logos and names that are being proposed by the focus group to you for consideration. It references not the word Diamond Head Country Club, but rather in their findings, they are suggesting that we go to a name that says the club at Diamond Head. The reason for that is based on their research and surveys that they conducted with property owners and members. The word country club has a connotation of being exclusive, secluded, uppity, not welcoming, all those things that we would not like to be associated with. So they're proposing the name, the club at Diamond Head. Just to give you an example, this sheet that you have as a cover sheet is one of 30 variations that they proposed. I took the samples that they provided and distributed it to 6 of our in-house staff people randomly, independent of one another, and no 2 samples came back as being preferred by anyone, and none of them selected the one that I liked the most. So therein lies the challenge. In addition to logos and names, they also are recommending that we look into changing names of locations within the club, such as converting the name 19th Hole to some other name. They had a strong recommendation that we use Hawaiian themed names and verbiage, and I think that's to be determined. So they've been spending time and effort despite some challenges with COVID having stricken their offices. And needless to say, we'd like to see things move along at a quicker pace, but it is what it is. Nancy Perkins, who's manning the desk this evening, is the point person on our behalf in communication with the focus group. And I feel that it's a matter of time before they truly get focused and deliver what we're looking for. So if you have questions, I'll try and answer as best I can. I may look to Nancy for follow-up, but any questions?
For those of you who may not be aware of it, the focus group is a group that goes and does research into naming and how things can improve various locations. So they were hired by the previous board, and then they came back with their report, part of their report, within the last couple of months.
Correct. One of the important reasons that Ms. Ertel suggested that this be on the agenda, that being the name change, is we're also working with the focus group on modifying and revising the websites, which we think are in desperate need of some attention, and to isolate the property owner association website separate, but also linked to the club website. So timing is somewhat important to us on this so we can move ahead with those items. Any questions?
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mr. Miles Sharp. He's the attorney for the POA.
Good evening. I was asked to come and report just on some of the legal stuff, and obviously because some of this involves active litigation, I can't go into too much because we want to divulge our legal strategy outside of executive session, but I do want to talk about just a couple of the items. I'll start with the easier one first, which, as some of you are aware, when I came in, one of the biggest problems that y'all were facing was that we had been essentially shut out of justice court, which is where we do most of our collection work for unpaid dues, because justice court has a limit of $3,500, and it's Mississippi's version of small claims court. The judges there are not lawyers, but those courts are set up and designed to handle fairly simple matters and to do them much more expediently than we do in what we call kind of the big boy courts, where you get bogged down in discovery and very bad backlogs on the dockets. And apparently what had happened back in June of this year was there's another lawsuit pending in Chancery Court that is not against, this board has not been named as a defendant, but I know some current and former board members were named, related to issues surrounding the exclusivity of the facilities at Diamond Head. But apparently the attorney in that case had gone to the court and without making I don't think he had made an appearance in the case, but he had convinced the judge that somehow that Chancery Court matter, which had no legal nexus whatsoever to the collection cases in Justice Court, precluded him from hearing our Justice Court cases. Of course, that's an incorrect assertion by the attorney, but the judge nonetheless continued the cases till November. I was on board by the time November rolled around. I went there, that attorney showed up again. I talked to him about whether he was going to try that again. He said that he was. I asked him if he needed to file that motion in writing so we could respond to it. He didn't want to do that. He just wanted to talk to the judge, and I think that's partly because he knew that what he was doing was improper. And again, I tried to explain to the judge that what he was doing would require an injunction from a higher court to preclude him. And to the judge's credit, I mean, he was very candid. And he just said, look, guys, I'm not a lawyer. This is over my head. You know, I'm just going to err on the side of caution, and I'm not going to hear these cases. I even provided him a copy of the complaint to show him that the complaint not only had nothing to do with collections, it didn't even name the association, nor did it even raise that as an issue in the case. Nonetheless, I asked the judge, I said, could you please do the order in writing so that I can appeal it? And I joked with him. I told him, I said, I don't want to be crossways with the board. I'm looking at the board. I didn't want to be crossways with the judge because he's the only judge hearing the cases there, and because I think all the other judges have recused. And he laughed. He says, look, as long as you don't say something bad about my mom or my wife, you'll be good with me. But he actually welcomed the appeal. He said, you know, please appeal it. That way I'll have some guidance from another judge. So we had actually, and I discussed with Ernie and Greg, and I had come up with about 4 different options of what to do, and we had multiple, which included filing a bar complaint against the lawyer, filing a writ with the Supreme Court, asking them to issue a mandamus ordering the Justice Court to continue hearing our cases, and decided that the most efficient way for you and to try to save y'all as much expense as possible would be merely to appeal it to the county court. And I'm probably getting in the weeds a little bit, but it's an interlocutory appeal. We don't have an appeal of right on a continuance order because it's not a final judgment. So you have to seek permission to appeal first. Once they grant you permission to appeal, Then you can brief it and have a hearing on the appeal itself. But first you have to get permission. You have to win the first battle first. This issue was so clear-cut that the judge, in one order, without a hearing or anything, granted the permission to appeal and went ahead and ruled on the order before I could even call the court to get hearing dates. And so he issued the order agreeing with me and advising the Justice Court that they need to hear our collection cases. And the Justice Court has gotten a copy of that order now. They've already reached out, and they're going to catch us up on all of the cases going back to June in January. So they've already sent us a date for that. So, and I know that was a big concern for the board when I came on because we rely on dues to operate, and people don't always pay their dues. And so then we have to be the bad guys and file lawsuits and go get judgments against folks, which we don't like to do. And so that had been a big obstacle. I suspect that was done to try to gain some leverage in the Chancery Court case. But nonetheless, that's off the table now, and then we're considering our options about intervening in the Chancery Court matter, and I'll discuss that with the board in executive session another time, the strategy behind that. But so that is some good news that we filed that appeal, won that appeal, and we have those dates set, and so hopefully we can get our collection cases back moving for the benefit of the association. The next item, which I know I've already briefed the board on previously, but was asked to at least come make a general statement about where we stand on the covenant issue and the expiration of covenants. And I'm going to try to explain this without getting as much of the legalese as I did on the last topic to try to keep it as simple as possible. In the POA, we have multiple sets of governing documents. You have covenants, you have bylaws, you have rules and regulations, you have an original charter. All these things you have to read and cross-read and cross-reference among each other. And the public and people in general don't really understand the difference in all those documents. And each one of every homeowners or property owners association I've dealt with has utilized those documents a little bit differently. Some put different rules in the covenants, some put them only in the bylaws, some put them in the original declarations. It just depends on where they are, but nonetheless, they've got to be followed. Long and short of it is you've got a lot of different subdivisions within Diamond Head. They all have different covenants, and all those different sets of covenants expire at different times, which has created a bit of a nightmare. This issue was addressed started beginning to be addressed back in 2009, so way before my time and y'all's time. There were opinions, and it was looked at by multiple different law firms at the time who had come up with different ways to try to address the expiration of these individual covenants. In 2010, what the association did, and I say that to be very clear, is that this was not a board action. This was not an action where the board just says, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to impose this upon the membership. This was a vote that was put to the entire membership in 2010. And in 2010, what the entire membership voted and approved to do was to adopt in its bylaws and mirror the language that existed in all of the different covenants throughout Diamond Head without the expiration date. So in other words, and I'm going to make this as simple as I can, in the covenant it says you have an obligation to pay dues. Well, you be bound by that because it's in your covenant. Well, that didn't exist in the bylaws, right? So if you just take that one little piece, and there's a lot of pieces in your covenants, what the membership voted to do in 2010 was to take that very same obligation and adopt it as a bylaw. And so as a property owner in Diamond Head, you're a member of the POA, period. And as a member of the POA, you're bound by the bylaws, you're bound by the covenants, and your covenants may expire. And And that's where a lot of the confusion comes from, is people are saying, my covenants have expired. But the problem is that the same responsibilities and the same things that existed in the covenants were mirrored and adopted into the bylaws in 2010. And so I've looked at that. I've even gone back and reached out to attorneys that gave opinions on that back in 2010, some of whom still do work for the association on outside matters. And I've bounced it off as many lawyers as I can. I've researched the case law and I looked at it, and ultimately my opinion was in agreement that based on the current state of the law in Mississippi, which it is what it is, and you're not going to find any two cases that are exactly the same, is that I believe that what the membership did in 2010, and keep in mind, I'm saying membership, not the board. The membership recognized that there was a benefit to maintaining the amenities in Diamond Head. They know that their property values depend on it and everything else. The landmark decision dealing with this kind of issue is called Perry. We refer to it as Perry. And in the Perry decision, what the court talked about, and this is where some additional confusion came up about covenants, was, well, the covenants expired, but what the courts have said is there is an implied covenant. In other words, it does not have to be written. There's called an implied covenant of necessity. And that implied covenant of necessity, what it means, and in that case, they didn't have near the amenities that Diamond Head has. And what it says is when you have a property owners association where you have amenities like that, as a matter of necessity, you've got to maintain those amenities. And the court goes through a long explanation about how property owners benefit, your property values are contingent upon those things being here and being available, and whether you use them or not, they're still necessary to keep up and keep running, and that by being a member of the POA, you have impliedly agreed to that covenant of necessity. So the long and short of it is, although covenants are expiring, those same provisions have been adopted in the bylaws. And so my recommendation has been to accept that as what it is and to continue on to bill for the dues. I think we're on very firm legal grounds to do so. And I'll address it with the board as we go through and continue on. Right now, we're going to try to get caught up on what's already out there that we've been behind on in justice court. But I know that he's been doing just a really good job of trying to work with people that feel like they shouldn't have to pay and explain to them why it's important and how it benefits everyone. But at some point, we're going to be in the same boat we are with the other folks, is we're going to have to, because you as a board have a fiduciary duty at the end of the day to collect dues and to do things and make sure that the POA is acting responsibly. And so if we can't get everybody on board eventually, we're going to be at that point with those folks as well, whose covenants have expired and believe that they don't need to keep paying and have to pursue collection matters against them. But that's where we are. I feel very confident about where we are, and at the end of the day, again, Diamond Head is a different animal. It just is. And a court may at some point tell us something different, but it's been 10 years, and I think the Perry decision it's as close to being on all 4 points as you can get, or all 4 corners of the document, as we call it. And so it's about as close as I think we're going to get, and that's all we can do. You can only rely on the law that's out there and as it stands. And the Perry decision it's a pretty compelling decision. And so, and look, don't get me wrong. I could take my Diamond Head hat off and I could step 3 feet over and put on the hat for a person, and I could probably argue multiple reasons against it. That's just the way the law is. But I think we're on firm ground. Are there any questions? All right.
That's good.
That's
Okay.
all I have.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, the next is the president's report. We had a lot of interesting events this last month. We fed about 400 people during Thanksgiving at lunch. We had several well-attended music events on the patio on some Friday evenings. We had an upscale bourbon and cigar event outside on the patio that was well-attended. The community center held a free open house with refreshments, and Santa was in attendance, and they were taking pictures in front of the Christmas tree there. Last Thursday, we held an evening meal in the ballroom with parents, children, and Santa Claus was there. Kids could write letters to Santa. The Christmas story was read. Christmas music was played throughout the evening. And just an FYI, if a letter was written to Santa by one of the kids there and the home address was included, the child actually received an actual reply letter within a couple of days afterwards. We had a very nice Christmas brunch this past Sunday. We've had several golf tournaments lately, which is somewhat unusual at this time of the year, but these were ones that were postponed earlier due to the COVID stuff. Coming up, we have a special New Year's Eve event at the club. It's information about that if you're available. The club will close at 2 p.m. on Christmas Eve and will remain closed on Christmas Day. Coming up in January, we have a beer tasting event, an oyster roast, and due to popular demand, another fine bourbon and cigar event. I don't know about you, but I'm having a problem with the Diamond Head News. I received my copy in the mail today. This was the December issue, which we're supposed to receive around the 1st or the 2nd. The deadline for inserting information in it last month was November the 10th, okay, and we got it today. The POA is not directly involved with the production of the Diamond Head News. It's done by a publishing company. The publishing company seems to be blaming the lack of distribution on the post office. The post office seems to be blaming it on the on the publisher. I don't know what's exactly going on. The deadline for the January edition was December the 10th. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on. Perhaps it's time for the POA to look at another venue to distribute information about the community. Excuse me. Based on that, I strongly encourage you to sign up for e-blast from the POA and also join the Facebook for the Diamond Head, so that Diamond Head POA, so you kind of know what's going on. At the last meeting, there was a request to include two things. One, to name the people who have back dues, who owe back dues. We decided we really don't want to put the name, get into that at this point anyway. But to give you a summary, the People's Bank owes us about $1.3 million. We won a case at the Supreme Court, okay, but now they are appealing part of the decision, okay, but that's $1.3 million. We have individuals who owe us $2.4 million for a grand total of $3.7 million. That would pay for all the amenities for 1 year with nothing else. So, the attorney just mentioned about what's going on, so that's taken care of. A note of caution to everybody up here on the board, we may have a cash flow issue coming up, may or may not, but it's partly due to the situation with the recent hurricane. We had over $200,000 in damages from what I've seen. The insurance company wants to give us $53,000 at this point. So we're negotiating or trying to help out there. I think to help, I think the board needs to evaluate all proposed purchases to be sure we're able to fund the repairs, because the two main things that we have to deal with right now are the 19th hole, getting it back open, and also the marina. Also, if you do pay your dues on a yearly basis, I would ask you to consider doing that as soon as you can. Thank you. Committee reports. Mr. Becker?
Thank you. The Golf Committee met on December the 3rd. All of the members were present. Some of the highlights of the things we talked about were 2021 proposed golf dues and fees, which we'll vote on tonight. We talked about legacy group tee time usage, and as a result of that discussion, we did not recommend making any changes to the legacy groups, but we did recommend that we allow the membership, Diamond Head members, to make tee times online a month in advance instead of 2 weeks in advance. I think that idea has already been adopted, and come January 1st, the portal will allow you to make your tee times a month in advance as opposed to 2 weeks in advance. The other things we talked about were varied, but I'd like to make a personal appeal to the membership. Is our greens look wonderful, but there are ball marks on them. There are loads and loads of ball marks on them, and it's impossible for the maintenance crew to fix all of those. It's up to us. So if you play in a golf group, you utilize the courses at Diamond Head, I ask that you fix your ball mark and one or two others when you're on the green, even if you can't find your ball mark, because sometimes the greens are hard that you can't see a ball mark. Fix a couple of them that are laying there. The greens would be almost perfect if we didn't have these ball marks, and we're the reason that they're there. So if we could rectify it, that would be great. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Marthouse, anything? Nothing from me. Ms. Rayner, anything? Mr. Gillen?
The admin committee didn't meet this month, but the Marina and Airport Committee did. We had Mr. Chance Watson, who is the general manager at Stennis Airport, who came out and talked with us, and we're going to partner with him a little bit on him coming over and helping us to make sure that we are following all FAA regulations. He has volunteered to do this, and we hope that we can work closely with him on making sure that our airport is safe and that it meets all regulations. We also had the general manager told us, Greg let us know that he has been contacted by the Department of Resources, is it, or one of them, that the people that were going to do the pig trapping for us, and they have trapped several more wild pigs, and there is not a lot of activity showing right now around the airport, which is very good for us on that way. The boat launch, the launch finger piers have been repaired, and they're being utilized right now. The general manager also explained to us that how it would work for if you rent one of the floating docks and you needed to store your boat in the boat storage, how that would work for what you would have to pay. That's about all I've got for that.
Anything on the admin committee? Anything on the admin committee? Okay. I've been working on the Futures Committee, and we've been talking for the last 3 or 4 months exactly what Mr. Sharp was talking about. Ms. Sislo?
The rec committee is still working primarily on figuring out ways that we can have educational programs that fit within a policy at the POA, so that we have good classes offered at our different facilities. We were continue to try to prioritize any repairs that maybe we can make to enhance the pools and the the basketball courts. And we're dealing with some of the tennis issues now as we try to restructure and find a way to really bring members back to the tennis.
Dr. Nutting?
Nothing, thanks.
Mr. Tozan?
Nothing.
Ms. Ertel?
The House Committee had several meetings. Greg touched on the focus group with the name change and the naming of the dining room and things like that, and we haven't gotten real far with that. For every person that we have that many votes on different names. And then the other things that the House Committee came is on the agenda tonight to vote for.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ramirez?
So the Grounds Committee did meet. It was a quick meeting. Basically, we realized that with the cleanup still going on from Zeta and having the holidays here upon us, that it's probably not a good time for us to come up with a list of other things that needed to be done by POA personnel. So we just made the decision to hold off for another month and let things kind of get caught up, get through the holidays, everybody on vacation and everything. And then next month we'll regroup and probably come up with some suggestions and proposals for the POA.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James. Anything?
No.
Okay, next is the general manager's report.
Thank you. As is typical, this month I've put together an information packet for you. Included in the packet, which will be posted for public information, is the November month-end numbers as well as year-to-date financials. In addition to that, we have the 2021 budget summary. The detail and backup for that had been emailed to each of you, and if you need hard copies, we can make them available to you and pick them up from the office tomorrow if you'd like that. In addition to the 2021 financial budget summary, there are a set of assumptions, which are the guidelines that we use to put the financials together. With the assumptions is a schedule of fees for membership to the golf club, to the tennis club, whether you're renting space at the RV park or the boat trailer location, or renting a boat slip at the marina. Furthermore, we have to put together for you, and this is an important disclosure, the list that is entitled Capital Expenditure List is not submitted with the intent for that list to be approved in totality. It's simply to list the various items that may be put forth to you for specific action at a certain time of the year. So don't misinterpret that submittal, where we're not looking for action or approval as one lump sum of items. I think Ernie spoke about the accounts receivable. I put a summary of that together for you. There's a membership report that lists the number of golf members in category as well as tennis club members. And I also included a current amenity use schedule. In other words, the amount of activity that each area is receiving from both POA members and their guests. Correspondence has been sent to the tennis club members as recent as Friday and Saturday. What was submitted to the tennis club members is a letter hoping to clarify various points that are of concern to the tennis club members as we begin a phase of somewhat restructuring the administrative aspect of the tennis club, which we plan to put into effect January 1st. The final item in the packet is the employment replacement schedule, and there's a handful of employees that are newly hired but replacements. Gary, I don't know if you intend to or will circle back, but in the golf committee report, I think it was your intention to discuss the golf cart lease. Okay, and I guess we'll come back to that at some point. Any questions? I'm in the office daily, and I'm always available to meet with, speak with, and I'll meet your timetable and schedule, whatever it takes to address certain concerns and issues that you might have. Thank you. And by the way, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you.
Okay. Mr. James, do we have any POA members who want to comment on agenda items?
Yes, we do. We have one, Amy Talbot. Okay.
Could you please just tell us your name when you get up here, because I'm not sure what he said.
Not a problem. Hi, my name is Amy Talbot, and my husband and I have been Diamond Head residents and POA members for approximately 15 years. And I just wanted to come up and just kind of speak to you. I'm usually not very active on Facebook or Diamond Head pages, but it just so happened in this past week that I saw a post on a Facebook page from Diamond Head and a POA member from the Diamond Head POA regarding Tennis World and the proposed 2021 fees. However, that email communication that was sent out and posted on Facebook basically said these are the fees for 2021. However, as we know, it is currently on the agenda for approval. So in my professional experience, I have been a member of health board meetings for healthcare systems, so I'm perfectly aware of how boards should function. And to have communication go out to members on something that is on the agenda before it's even been convened upon and approved upon, in my professional opinion, is unprofessional and unethical. And so as a Diamond Head resident and a POA member, I'm just asking the POA to please be cognizant of the communication that you're sending out towards the Diamond Head residents in the community, especially in light of all the litigation and everything else that is going on within the community. On top of that, at first light, it does look, by apparent sake, that the POA member will have reduced fees. However, in reality, we will not, because by the time we add in our dues for our homes and any additional lots that we may own, on top of the tennis fees, for the Tennis World and the East Rec and everything else, we're actually paying $1,000 or more per year, than a non-POA member. So I guess my question to you in that regard is, so what is the advantage of being a POA member? If we wanted use of the Tennis World and the East Rec and the pools, which is predominantly what my family uses, is that area, then we could just move outside of Diamond Head, not have to pay our POA dues because we're no longer residents of Diamond Head, but yet we would still have access to the amenities at a cheaper cost. So I'm just asking y'all to please consider that and to maybe table the approval for this and consider the Diamond Head residents, especially since you're trying to promote and improve the relationship of the Diamond Head community residents towards the POA. And these were just a couple of examples of ways that you could consider doing that moving forward. So I just wanted to thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we did not have any unfinished business, and we do not have anything on consent agenda. I would like to remind everybody that, because I think somebody may want to amend a motion. Amending a motion, it's a two-step process, because we would have to vote to approve the amendment. Then you have to go back and vote on the motion with the new amendment on it. Okay, so just remember, it's a two-step process. Okay, the first one, anyone want to make a motion to approve the 2021 budget as presented?
I will. Sure, I got it.
Okay, Dr. Nutting makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Gillen seconds. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say for the record that.
Turn your mic on.
I am, yeah, thank you, sir. I get it. I was not involved very much in the budget process. I am not pleased with the budget as it is presented. It seems like some of the costs have been inflated. I don't think that there have been any concessions to save money at all in this budget. Administration seems to have gone up. I don't agree with the way they calculate the cost of goods sold at the country club, which also gives it an appearance that I don't think is correct. Yeah, so I definitely am not for this budget. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? I will make one comment. You'll notice there's nothing in the budget for capital expenditures, because basically most of us have agreed we're not sure what's going to happen in the future at the moment. So we're going to look at this budget, and if it passes, we will probably have to redo it, if that's the correct terminology, after 3 months. And I think we're going to have to look at capital improvements on a case-by-case basis at this time on what's involved. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, 10-1. Next, we had a motion to replace 7 non-warranty broken and add 5 toast handheld devices because of increased staff in the bar.
That, I'm gonna make the motion, but I'm gonna change, can I change it now, or do I have to amend it? Because I want to make a motion.
Get it, let's get this one on the floor and then we'll amend it.
All right. Well, the motion is to spend $3,500 to replace the 7 broken toast and 2 charging stations at this time. The other additions will be pushed out further into 2021.
Okay,
So the motion is to spend $3,500 to replace the 7 units that are broke. They're over 2 years old. They're not built to last forever.
and to add, how many new ones? No,
I'm not adding any new ones at this time. The motion is to spend $3,500 to replace the 7 that are broken and the 2 charging stations. And to put, that's the motion. The additions are going to be pushed off to later in the year.
okay, do we have a second for that particular motion? Mr. Tozan seconds that. Any discussion? Mr. Marthouse?
Just got a couple of quick questions. So these units aren't really over 2 years old, right? Because we previous. Sorry about that. He told me to take the mask off. These units aren't actually over 2 years old, right? So do we know why they're breaking? Because the previous board, which was less than 2 years ago, late on, voted for them, right? So do we? And I guess maybe this is more of a question to Greg. Do we know? Are we like over handling these things? And how long is the warranty on these things normally?
I'll turn to the controller. The warranty is for 1 year. It's just made 2 years since we had the system this month. I think there's that. I think the problem, the issue is probably the wear and tear, just the servers, the access that they have, going bumping into things maybe. I think we can do a better job at taking care of it. But absolutely, I think that at this point, we can do a better job at that, but we do have to replace it to the broken.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, so we have a motion to spend a maximum of $3,500 to replace 7 of them that are broken and add or redo whatever 2 charging ports, stations. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Can't tell. Okay. All opposed? Okay, the vote is 10-1. The third is a motion to approve the 2021 proposed golf rates and fees. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, it's Mr. Becker. We need a
I'll
second.
second.
Mr. James seconded. Discussion, Mr. Becker?
No, we spent a good bit of time looking over what the fees were in the golf committee. And at first, we came up with a plan that would have charged the existing associate members more. And then as Chris talked to that group and we thought about it and talked to Greg, we decided that we had the opportunity to receive the increased dues would be more than offset by the number of members we would lose. So we backed off on that for the existing associate members this year. So the increase that you're seeing that's for the associate members is less than was originally proposed, but we decided to dilute it to try to keep those members.
But but there is an increase to those members.
Yes, that's correct.
How much?
The increase to those members, Chris didn't put that on the sheet. I think in total, in cart fees and in fees, it is approximately $600 a year. When we went back and looked at the previous years, 2 years ago, those members were paying less than our members. And I think that was an oversight. And then last year, they paid exactly the same thing that members paid, but Greg pointed out to all of us that, well, members are paying their $650 of dues. So we came up what we thought was a compromise of a fair charge to people who don't pay dues, but also we wanted to keep them as members.
Gary, I got a question. So as I'm looking at this schedule of fees, POA member, individual member for 2021 pays $1,700. Is that correct on the top?
Yes.
Right, plus their fees,
Plus
plus
the
their
card fee.
$672. No, I'm just saying just for $1,700, okay?
Correct.
That's a POA member. Plus they pay their dues, which is $672, so that's $2,372. You have a non-member at $2,300. So it's a difference of $72.
No, you're incorrect.
Oh, okay,
A POA non-member is paying $2,300
right.
in the same place where a member's paying $1,700, so it's $600 more.
Sure,
They
but,
don't get the card included.
no, I get that. I understand, but what I'm saying is that, so I don't golf, so excuse me if I'm, wrong here. But you guys, the golfers have to pay above and beyond their dues, correct?
Yes, they pay
Right.
the $1,700 plus
Right.
their cart fees.
Okay, so a POA individual member is paying $1,700 a year, plus their $672 as a POA member of
Right.
Diamond Head.
Correct.
That is $2,372. You're charging a non-member, someone that lives outside, $2,300. So that's a difference of $72. That's it.
But they are not getting the other membership benefits that we get. They don't get the,
Okay, I understand that, but
basically, they're just about paying the amount of dues plus their golf membership just to be able to play golf. They can't use the pools or get a discount at the country club, or they don't get to use the community
Sure.
center for a reduced rate. So
Sure.
they're basically paying, yes, you're right, they're paying like, what, $50 less than we pay in dues,
Right.
but all they're getting is golf.
gotcha. And I understand, and that makes sense. And it was the same as we saw that when the tennis fees came through, it was, again, a difference of $72 for a member versus a non-member, and we are giving away non-members use of the pools and all this other stuff with a tennis membership. So again, like Ms. Talbot had brought up, we have to really think in terms of value. We are residents. It has been here for 50 years, and a lot of people that have been longtime residents have paid a lot of dues into this structure. So it just seems a little small, $72 difference.
Well, basically, they're almost paying dues for none of the rights other than golf.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other questions or comments about proposed golf rates and fees?
Gary, they have to buy a cart on top of that fee, right?
Yes, on top of the
So that's just a greens fee number. If they want to ride around in a golf cart, they have to pay even more money besides that.
Correct.
Any other comments? Okay, so all in favor of approving the proposed golf rates and fees, please raise your hand. Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, it's 10-1. Okay, the motion number 4, the motion to approve the purchase of the tracked skid steer was pulled. So now we're on number 5. It's a motion to approve allowing the city of Diamond Head to use a section of the clubhouse ballrooms for municipal elections. Anyone like to make that comment? That motion?
I'll make that motion.
Dr. Nutting makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Ertel seconds. Any comments? Mr. Marthouse?
Just a question on that. So, like this last election, right, for the presidential election, and I know, is this mainly just for city elections, or is it for all
Yes.
elections?
No, this is just municipal elections. That's
okay,
it.
okay, thank you.
Just a couple of other things. They're asking for, what's happened. Ward 1 right now votes in the activity center over here. Wards 2, 3, and 4 vote in the community center. They've basically run out of room in there, okay, because they've got in wards 2, 3, and 4, you've got about 1,500 registered voters in each ward. Okay, that obviously they don't all vote. The 3 dates that they're talking about are Tuesday, April the 6th. That would be for the Democratic and the Republican primaries. On Tuesday, April 27th, it would be the primary, the runoffs if that's needed. So you got to get 50% plus 1, so no runoff would be needed. And then the general election is on Tuesday, June the 8th. The general election, normally there's only 2 people left unless the Constitution Party or the Libertarian Party or somebody like that, or you run unopposed. You register unopposed, not in any party, then you're automatically in there. But what it amounts to is you still normally in the general election, they end up with getting 50% of the votes plus 1. Sometimes it doesn't happen if there's 3 candidates. Just a couple of other things they asked me to mention. The poll workers would need to have access to the voting area by noon the day before the actual voting. Okay, the day of the voting, they have to be able to get in at 6 a.m. in the morning because the polls start open at 7 a.m. They close at 7 p.m. Once it closes, they run a computer summary tally on each machine, and then they lock the machine. They take the flash drive out. They'll bring it back over to here to do all the tabulations. Generally, voting machines are picked up the day after the election. Now, if they vote in our clubhouse over there, if you can picture on the side of it, there's a little drive-through there, a portico. I hate that word, but a portico. They can use that for the drive-through, the curbside voting would be there. The entire building, however, because people would be entering from the front and the side, would be considered a voting precinct or location. So it means that day you can't wear a T-shirt saying vote for Joe or vote for Mary or something like that in the place. The city would also mark off a line 150 feet from both entrances because they have to do that to keep any electioneering outside the 150 foot mark. So there's still plenty of place to park in the circle. That wouldn't be a problem. You could park there. If the entire ballroom is used, they could easily divide it into wards 2, 3, and 4. Another interesting thing, the poll workers cannot leave the voting room during the regular hours except to go to the bathroom. So they usually have to bring in food and drink for themselves. Possibly the club could work out some kind of a way to do a poll workers lunch, and you could bring it to them at the door, and then they could take it into them. Obviously, voting, in my opinion, in the club would increase foot traffic. It'd probably get some people in there who've never been inside the building. The request applies, as Mr. Marthouse asked, it's only for municipal elections. There are no county elections in 2021, and even if they are, they have different requirements. I think it's the last thing. It's important to note that if we decide to do this, we cannot change our mind this year because the city is required to send out a letter to every registered voter in every ward the voting location is being changed. So it's not something they can just do today and, say, oh, I'm sorry, we got something else. Okay? That's it for me. Any other comments?
Ernie, I do. For the past 50 years, historically, we've had the elections at the community center, which is also, of course, a POA-owned building. The number of residents has grown tremendously in that time frame. We truly have outgrown the building to have elections. The city has graciously allowed us to use this building because of the video capacity that we don't have at the country club. So I think we would be short-sighted to turn down this request.
Any other comments? Okay, everyone in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. The next one, we have a motion to approve using the already approved dredging grant to rebuild the Marina piers number 1 and number 2 in place of doing the actual dredging. Anyone like to make that motion?
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
That was Mr. Becker making the motion, Mr. Gillen seconding it. Any comments? Mr. Marthouse?
Sorry, just a question. And this is just maybe my ignorance. So with the, oh, thank you again. Sorry. With the funding designated for dredging, is there any, lack of a better word, legal ramifications for using it for other stuff?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna tell you. We've already made applications to Marine Resources, and they have approved us being able to utilize those funds. And of course, there are a number of hoops we have to jump through. We're gonna have to follow their rules on how we're going to go out for these to get the bids to replace Piers 1 and 2. So there's a number of things we have to do, but it is approved that we can use those funds. And just to let everybody know, we will make another, attempt to get funds again from the legislature for the dredging. One of the things that we may be able to have done, it's a small, I guess you'd call a redneck way of doing it, but no offense to all of us that live here, but when they come in to take away the sailboat, if none of you have been down to the harbor, there's a sailboat that was not moved before the hurricane, and it has caused damage to the piers, and that owner is being held responsible. There's another large boat that did some damage to the piers over there, and he will be held responsible. But when they come in, they're going to have to use a large barge and a tugboat, and Marine Resources will allow that tugboat to do what they call wheel washing, which will give us some dredging. It's not the best, but it's something. So we will get that. The other thing is, while we're talking about this, I meant to say something when we were talking a little bit about the meeting we had of the committee. If you do go down to the marina, there are two walkways, I guess is the best way to put them. They call them docks, but they aren't used for docks. They're walkways, actually, that were severely damaged in the hurricane. And they are roped off with yellow tape. Please be very careful when you go down there. Hopefully in the next week or two, those repairs on an emergency basis we'll be able to get those underway. And as we said, hopefully we will get some insurance from the boats that did some of that damage.
I have one other comment on that. The original grant was for over $200,000, but this means we have to put out the money first, then you try to get the money back out of FEMA and MEMA. So that's one of the things that is a little concern in terms of cash flow. Any other comments?
Yeah, I do, Ernie.
Yeah.
We learned during the hurricane, before the hurricane, those of us who use the marina on a regular basis on the docks 1 and 2 that we're talking about, we've had boards rot, and when we've sent the maintenance crew out to replace the top dock boards, there's nothing underneath that you can screw them to. So every time we have to put a top deck board on top of one of those 2 docks, we have to put a sister on the runner underneath so we can have something that's other than nothing left more than cardboard of the old wood underneath to screw to. And then the hurricane damage on top of that made the 2 docks, Piers 1 and 2, completely unusable. So we're either faced with the option of using the dredging money to rebuild as much of them as we can and that we can afford, or just close down docks 1 and 2 and be limited to 3 and 4, which would cut our boat capacity in half.
One other thing about what we're proposing are floating docks like we have at 3 and 4, and there were, or there was, before the hurricane, a waiting list to utilize those docks. If we are able to put in at least one more floating dock, that will increase our income for the marina substantially.
So we're not looking at replacing 1 and 2 with floating docks, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, we are.
Oh, we are, so we're gonna
We are,
replace.
but we don't know if we're gonna have enough money till we get the bids.
Okay,
We may only be able to do one right now.
gotcha.
Any other comments? Okay, so all in favor?
One more comment. Do we have any idea when we might be able to resubmit for money to be able to dredge? Because from what I understand, that's been something that has been needed to be done for quite some time.
We need to do it right away.
But we have any idea when it might get approved? I mean, is there, when we would be able to actually do the dredging, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I understand that, it would have to be approved in the legislature coming up. And then we have to go out and jump through the hoops and get all of the bids in. I don't know if everyone here knows, but we all know on the board, the last time they tried that, they got no bids. There were no bids, so it's a very frustrating process, and we're just gonna have to start completely over again.
I just, if it's having needed to be done for quite some time now, and we're gonna take the money that we've got now to put to something else, it's just questionable, is that the right thing to do for me? I understand that we're able to put the docks back in order and receive the income coming from the boats that are being docked, but,
Well,
just a question mark.
Docks 1 and 2.
I agree.
Docks 1 and 2 need to be totally abandoned.
It-
We
it's a-
don't get any income from dredging.
I agree.
Yeah, I know what people are gonna say about maybe it'll limit some boats, but right now, we can get the boats in there to utilize our docks. By replacing this dock, we will increase the marina's income.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I got a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now, for the use of the marina, when people are you talking about the income from people docking their boats there? Because right now, we really don't make that much income at all
We
over
get-
there.
We're talking about income for putting their boat at the dock and leaving it there.
Okay,
And we're also talking about launching fees.
okay, because
That's the only two places we get money.
Okay, because launch fees right now, I think they're $5, and it's like kind of voluntary. We pay for someone to be down there as a harbor master with, and right now, we're running at a loss. And it's never really made that much money. And so my concern is, it took a long, long time to get those funds for the dredging. I don't know if we can stand another year or two, and how that's going to impact the area that those funds were for.
Like
So-
I said, it's not a problem right now. If you've been out in a boat, or you've taken a boat through there, even at low tide and a winter tide, almost everybody has had no problem getting through. And as you saw, we did have sailboats, and still have, I think, a sailboat that uses our dock. They have a much deeper draft than most boats, and they can utilize. So for us to hold on to some funds that could be utilized for us to increase our income, as you just pointed out, why not?
I have one comment or a question, I guess. For some of you who were on the previous board, if I remember correctly, that was a grant that built a ramp, so you cannot charge a launch fee. You can charge a parking fee. Anybody agree?
No, yeah, that was a misconception when we approached the county after the storm, the recent hurricane, to ask them whether the launch actually belonged to the county or it belonged to Diamond Head. They said no, they had no interest in the matter at all, that the launch belongs to us. And so the fees are up to us. We can charge launch fees.
Then that's something that we need to consider. Okay, but it's not in this proposal, that we're just a different issue. you'll bring that up at a later date. Is that what you're saying?
No, we're not looking at changing the launch fee. We're just saying that it's okay for us to charge a launch fee.
We need to do a better job of actually monitoring and collecting the launch fees.
Right, because right now it's voluntary, the way it works.
It's semi-voluntary, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, okay, any other questions, comments? We still have a motion to approve using the dredging grant to rebuild Marina Piers 1 and 2. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed? Okay, it's 10-1 in favor. The next motion is to approve the restructuring of tennis to include administrative and membership fee changes for 2021. Anyone like to make that motion?
I make that motion.
Ms. Sislo makes the motion. Do we have a second? Who was that? Mr. Tozan seconds. Any discussion?
I would like to, I think this is the way you do it. I would like to amend that motion and give us a couple weeks to reconsider the membership fee based on Ms. Talbot's input. The rec committee does not meet until January. I'm sure we need to get this done by the end of the year, but perhaps we could have a small group hash it out one more time, just make sure we've considered all her concerns before we move forward. So if we could approve the restructuring administratively and get the fees resolved by the end of the year, I'd appreciate that.
So am I correct? You want to make a motion to amend it, the actual motion,
That's
to
correct.
approve the restructuring of tennis to include administrative
They include the administrative change.
change, and that's it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we hear that motion. Do we have a second for that?
Sislo, okay.
Okay, Mr. Tozan, second. Now, we're only talking about the amendment itself. No, we changed that whole thing, didn't we?
Yeah,
Now you got me
basically,
screwed up, okay.
well, it's like Ms. Sertel did. We took out part of it. I am.
Okay, so you want to make the motion.
I don't want to be in this all alone.
The motion simply to approve the restructuring of tennis to include administrative person.
Changes for 2021, and I'll deal with the other thing later. Table the membership fee.
I have a question. Can we resolve that before the end of the year so we can start collecting dues? Otherwise, we're going to putting dues money on the shelf.
Right, and so my goal would be to try to pull together the rec committee or some people by next week, have a chance to hash this out and have that resolved. We have to get this done by the first of the year. It sounds like the golf committee had the same issue that now the tennis is being brought up about tennis, and we need to make sure we've hashed this out well. And the rec committee did not do the fees themselves, so I'm trying to find a way to get some other input, just to make sure we've looked at all the possibilities and we're doing the same thing throughout the organization. That's where I'm going with this.
So just a quick comment. It looks like the difference between the golf and the tennis fees is that the golf doesn't include the use of swimming pools and other stuff where the tennis fees do. So I think that's the big difference that I would agree needs to be looked at. I agree with Mr. Becker that we need to resolve this like in the next week and a half. So are we able? I guess, Mr. President, would we be able to convene and vote on this then?
And I'm going out of town.
Anybody else have a suggestion? I mean, we could table it, and then y'all can come up with your thing. We can call an emergency or a special call session as long as we have 3 days notice. Yes, sir.
Can we, with protocol, can Ms. Cicelo put together her recommendations, and can we vote on them online to pass the final phase of it?
I don't personally have a problem with it, but I don't know, as long as we're doing it in public as much as we possibly can.
Well, we're gonna post it, what we decide. It's really no different than doing it here. We're just gonna make a decision, and then we're gonna put it out to the populace, on the website. And I'm only suggesting that because of the time of the year and the holiday holidays and the first of the year coming up right around the corner?
Good question. Yes, sir.
I have a suggestion for the board. It's not uncommon in club and club operations to make a disclosure that fees and dues are subject to change. And one thought that you might consider is to accept the fees as posted. We're not forcing any individual, past or future member to subscribe to the fees that are posted, but those who desire may elect to do so. It doesn't preclude you or the rec committee from coming back in the first week of January saying, we're going to revise the fees to be X, Y, and Z. So out of the attempt to communicate with the tennis club members, I'm the responsible party for having sent a letter and the fee schedule out this past Friday. And I did that out of respect for the membership. And the young lady who addressed the board earlier this evening, I respect her comments and don't disagree with some of the points that she made. But my suggestion for you to consider is accept the fees temporarily with a intention by the rec committee to meet at whatever time that is convenient for the committee and propose to modify the dues and fees as listed. So,
Given his comment, which is very helpful, it's often hard to know exactly what's the best way to negotiate here. I would like to withdraw my amendment then and go forward with the motion as first stated. And then we can go with fees subject to change, and we won't get ourselves caught up in the problem we're dealing with right now. So I withdraw that amendment.
I think this is legal, but I'm not sure. So we'll just vote on the motion to approve the restructuring of tennis to include administrative and membership fee changes for 2021. If we pass that, then you get the rec committee and so forth together along with some of the tennis people and work it out and then let us know what the changes are.
That's correct. I will do it that way.
Does anybody have an objection to that?
I don't know, probably.
Okay, so the motion right now is simply to approve the restructuring of tennis to include administrative and membership fee changes for 2021. All in favor, raise your hand.
No, Karen?
Okay, all against? Okay, it's 10-1.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is a motion to approve replacement of light fixtures and lighting on 7 tennis courts. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Dr. Nutting makes that motion. Do we have a second?
I'd like to make a motion to amend that motion if we can, please.
Well, wait, second it first.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, well, now we,
I would like to make a motion to amend that motion.
okay, hold up. So now on the floor at the moment, we have a motion to approve replacement of light fixtures and lighting on tennis courts. Now, you want to make an amendment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, what would the amendment
The
be?
amendment would be that we would put 1/2 of that cost into replacing the lights here in the next month and delay the cost for the remainder of the lights into the second quarter.
Do you know what the cost is offhand?
$17,000. We would spend half of it at this time and the remaining in March.
So you're talking about, what, $8,500?
I'm sorry,
You're saying spend $8,500 at this point?
at this point to do, it would be 3 courts and we would do the remaining courts. We would do the remaining courts in the second quarter.
Okay, so that amendment, he's made that amendment. Now we need a second to that amendment, just to the amendment.
I second the amendment.
Ms.
Sislo does.
Sislo seconds that. Now we have discussion on the amendment itself. Any discussion? So now we have to go back and vote on, whoops, I'm sorry.
Wait.
Missed you over there.
We have discussion. Greg, could you explain to us, what I was told previously was that most of our tennis play is at night, and now we're saying that the courts are not adequate to play at night. What's changed?
Three of the 10 courts have proper lighting. One fixture on one of those 3 courts was damaged during the hurricane. So in theory, you have 2 3/4 courts that are properly lit at this time. The remaining courts, the remaining 7 courts, require a revised fixture to provide proper lighting in the evening. The majority of tennis players, I'm told, are currently employed and enjoy playing in the evening hours, and as a result are seeking the completion of putting in the proper lighting. Mr. Tozan's amendment suggests that instead of replacing all of the lights at the same time, which would be hopefully in the first couple weeks of 2021, to split that in half and do 3 more courts now, which would give them 6 courts, and then do the balance in February or March for cash flow purposes, which I think is a proper amendment. So,
Okay, so the motion that we're voting on,
Sorry, I have a quick question.
go on, okay.
As well. So we have how many members, tennis members?
Roughly 50.
We have 50 tennis members. Okay. Is the work going to be performed by our guys? Are we just buying the lighting and they're going to replace it? Or are we hiring a contractor?
the lighting fixtures would be installed by
Okay,
our staff.
okay. Thanks.
Not tennis club staff, our facility staff.
Right, the facility staff, so we would get a boom lift or, scissor lift or whatever and replace it ourselves. Great. So the lighting and everything, is that pricing inclusive of labor costs and materials and everything?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we're back, I think, to the motion to approve replacement of light fixtures and lighting by spending up to $8,500.
Correct.
Okay, any other, Mr.
I
Martins?
apologize. I just have one more question. By splitting it up, does it, just thought of it, are we sure that,
Does
You
it
know,
affect,
the
does it
cost-
affect the Osteen?
Yeah,
No, as my
okay.
understanding is that does not.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, it's a unanimous vote. Thank you. Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry, missed that one. Okay, it's 10-1. Next, we have a motion to create a safety and environmental committee or subcommittee to analyze our operations for OSHA compliance and create a process to maintain compliance. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Ramirez makes that motion. A second? I'll second that. Ms. Rayner seconds it. Any discussion?
We've just noticed that there's some things that we probably need to look into as far as examples. Bulk chemical storage does it meet the reportable quantities, which would require us to have some type of containment around it? I don't know what that quantity is, and I just think we need to look into some things and find out, are we following and doing what we need to be doing, and if not, then what do we need to do to make it right?
Yes, ma'am.
Lloyd, I got a quick question. Is that going to include actually developing and maintaining a safety program that's going to be run by our management for our employees?
So I would like to see that, yes.
Good.
And it would be things like fire extinguishers. Do we have a
Right.
list of them? Where is that kept? Are they on a annual basis being inspected? Do they have tags? Who's looking at this to make sure
Right.
that it's done? Yeah,
Perfect.
that
No,
type of
that's
stuff.
good. In addition, though, I'm talking about a safety program for our actual employees because, for the record, we have a huge workman's comp and insurance rates because of accidents.
So let me elaborate a little bit on that. This past year has been much better than previous years, and there is a safety handbook that is being followed. And there has been some changes in the recent past that I think led to this improvement in safety. I still think there are probably some room for some more improvements. But that's what I would like this committee to be formed for, is to identify those things and make those things happen.
In recognition of the very high insurance rates, as Ms. Rayner mentioned, we have been in communication with our insurance carrier and have been in communication with safety experts, and they are providing guidance to our key personnel with developing a safety program with the proper procedures, and we have enlisted our HR representative to head up that committee. We'll be in communication with Lloyd and Karen and whomever else, Mr. Gillen, may want to contribute to our process, but we're active in that role, and it's being formulated as we speak. So,
Thank you. Do you have any ideas on who might be on a committee like that?
Okay,
If you
so
say no, it's okay.
well, I have to say, my last 10 years with Shell Oil Company, I was in safety in one aspect or another,
Right.
so I would be glad
That
to be
was a
part of.
softball question. For
Yeah, I
you.
kind of figured that it was. But anyway, I would not mind being part of that committee. I'm sure that there are many other people in Diamond Head that have background in safety or OSHA regulations and experience. And so I would, if I was to be part of that, I would try to locate those people and use the best resources that we had.
I got a question just for the, do you have a charter already for it? I know you kind of talked about it, but like our previous committees, you know, we had the charter, we voted on it and all that other good stuff. So are you anticipating bringing back the charter for us to look at and vote? Or just curious?
If that's what we need to do, if that's what I need to do, yeah, I can do that. That's not a problem. It was just an idea of, is this something that we might want to do?
And the only reason I say that is from previous experience when committees don't have charters, they kind of can get off track and do, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
I got one comment. I think that in our discussion, it should include not only members but staff that are involved. If the employees are not involved, then it's something that's being pushed upon them.
Any
That-
other
that-
questions? Or comments?
That's a good point, because just from my previous work experience, right, all the safety committees are usually the employees, right, that are on the committee so that they can be involved with the decisions and help around that, so.
Anyone else? Okay, so we have a motion to create a safety and environmental committee or subcommittee to analyze our operations for OSHA compliance and create a process to maintain compliance. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, it was unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the next one, we have a motion to establish the POA Board Delegation of Authority as provided by Mississippi State statutes. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Ramirez makes a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Gillen. Mr. Ramirez.
Yeah, so this was actually in our policy and procedures manual back 10, 15 years, 12 years ago. And for some reason, for whatever reason, it was removed. I don't know what that reason was. That's not of my concern. It's basically something that we're doing already. And if you look at it, what it basically says is, instead of every time the POA needs to buy a hammer to go do business, that we don't have to have a meeting to approve that purchase. And so that's what this is about, is in writing showing that the POA has the authority to go take care of their business. Basically, we're doing what it says already. It's just putting it in writing.
I think what we're talking about too is we had asked for a policies and procedure manual in the very beginning, and what actually occurred was they had the staff pull things from various areas. And I think am I correct that you're trying to put everything in one book?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, Sue?
Comment?
Yes, ma'am.
So do we have a policies and procedure manual?
Yes, we do.
Okay, can I get a copy of that?
Sure.
Because I'd like to see that. And where did that originate from, or was it just updated or revised?
So it was given to me from the POA office.
Okay,
It was pulled together from various sources.
right. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to establish the POA board. Delegation of authority is provided by Mississippi state statutes. All in favor, please raise your hand. No. Okay, that's, Gary, I can't see you and Bob. Is yes? Not up, not up. Bob, not up. Okay, so we have
2, 3, 4, 5,
Eight.
6.
8 yes and 3 no. So the motion passes. Number 11, we have a motion to replace 800 square feet of ramp area adjacent to the concrete boat launch with concrete. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Gillen makes that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
That was Mr. Becker second, okay? Mr. Gillen?
This is the area right where the concrete launch ramp is. It's continually deteriorating because of it's a very wet area. The boats are continually coming in and out of that area. While we have a contractor on site who is going to replace another area that we approved for $3,500, he gave us a bid for $7,000 to replace this part. If he can do both at the same time, he will take $1,000 off of that bid. So we can get it done for $6,000. If we don't do it now, it'll cost $7,000 later.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Becker?
We had already talked about making repairs to that area, and this is not a lot more money than we were considering for repairs, and the concrete will be a much more permanent solution.
Am I correct? This is the part just where kind of when a boat is, car is pulling out and where the rear wheels are spinning and all that?
Correct.
That's what we're talking about, that area.
that
It's
area.
it's filled with shells right now.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. It'll extend the concrete of the launch itself out another 20 feet.
And it won't be too slippery?
Pardon?
Say again?
I said it won't be too slippery.
Won't be too slippery?
Well, no, when you put, obviously, you take the concrete and you can put sipes in it so that there's not only good traction, but they can also drain the water off of it.
Okay, great, thanks.
And the other thing in favor of that is we're going to invest in the docks to get boats in there and people to come down the ramps. If the area is rough and bumpy, they're just not going to come and go there. So it's just prudent to do this along with everything else we're doing.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll make one comment on the Stewart's comment that I was down there with Ted before the hurricane, just kind of taking a look at some things, looking at what we were having the problem with that ramp area. And there was a gentleman who came over here from Jordan River Shores that had just launched his boat. And when he launched his boat, he also bought $400 worth of fuel. So for us to have a first-rate marina, it's going to bring in a lot more income to us.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion to replace 800 square feet of ramp area adjacent to the concrete boat launch with concrete. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, it's 10 for, 1 against, so it passes. Okay, the next one that was added, I have just written down cart, means golf cart lease. Anybody want to talk about that one? Mr. Becker?
Yes, the golf committee and also some of the management team met with the club manufacturers. The two biggest ones are Club Car and Easy Go. We also invited Yamaha to bid on this process, but they never did offer us a bid, so we reached out to the three main manufacturers, and two of them responded. We had 2 meetings with each one of them. The Gulf Committee, along with management, I believe, is recommending that we take the EasyGo proposal, which includes the Pentium battery carts, which, if you are familiar with golf carts, there's maintenance involved in keeping water in the batteries. You get corrosion on the terminals from the acid in the air and it touching the surfaces, and this eliminates all of that. The battery's completely sealed. You don't put water in it at all. There's no maintenance to the battery. The batteries are, we're talking about a 5-year lease. The batteries themselves are guaranteed by the manufacturer, Samsung, on the EasyGo carts for 8 years. So we reached out to the EasyGo rep in the area and said, as a concession to make this work, would you give us the 8-year battery warranty that the manufacturer does? They only like to give you the 5 years because then they know they can take the carts back and release them to someone else for 3 more years. Well, we thought if we're 5 years down the road and we have no money, then we could continue to use these carts for the remaining 3 years. The main maintenance item on an electric golf cart is the battery. And you also would save on the electrical costs for charging the batteries because they charge much quicker and with less amperage. So we looked at all the proposals. We decided that the one we would like to recommend to the board is to take the EasyGo proposal for their Pentium battery carts. When we look at the cost, it's going to cost us, where did we have it, Greg? $5,612.80 a month. That's about $750 more than we're paying now, and the resulting energy savings from charging the carts, not to mention the labor, is going to offset that completely. Plus, we'll have a cart that if we needed to, we could use for 8 years without changing batteries. They both offer to have a representative on site basically once a week to correct any problems that we have. We already had a relationship in the past with Ben Nelson Golf Carts, which is the EasyGo distributor on the coast. Greg has a good working relationship with Mr. Nelson Sr., which can't hurt. And so it just seems like the most advantageous way to go. We also worked into this proposal. They both came to us. It started out with Club Car, and Club Car said there's a big trade-in value now. So we can get you a better deal if you'll trade in now instead of waiting until your leases are up in April. So then we asked EasyGo, and they gave us an even better trade-in value than Club Car did. We talked to them about making this deal by the end of the year, but they wouldn't put the order in until February. It would take a couple of months for them to manufacture and deliver the carts. So what we're basically asking to do is to make this agreement now, but we won't have any additional lease payments because the delivery of the carts won't be until April when our current lease runs out.
Okay, I made a mistake on the way we did this one. We're doing it backwards because I didn't expect Gary to talk quite that long. So instead of what we need is a motion on the floor to approve the cart lease as that you're proposing, or however you want to say it. So it's up to you now.
Yes, I'd like to propose that we accept the EasyGo proposal with delivery in April when our carts lease runs out.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Dr. Nutting seconds that. Now, any other or further discussion?
How many carts are we talking about?
80.
80?
80 is the amount we have now. 80 is the amount we need to replace. There's also a factor involved, Lloyd, that they would lease us additional carts as needed because they're 3 or 4 times a year when we need more than 80 carts. and they give us a certain amount of carts free when we need them, and then if we exceed that amount, they rent us the other carts at a reasonable amount, and they pick up and deliver.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Hertel?
Is it the same setup with the fold windshield and the rain?
It
in the
is.
back?
It's the same setup with the windshield. The difference is that the cover in the back we have now is a Velcro fastener, and these are going to be magnetic. We had the choice of magnetic or zippers, but we know that if we let our guests use the zippers over and over for 5 years, that's not going to work out as well as a magnetic catch. And they're going to maintain everything.
Any other questions? Okay, so we have a motion to approve the Easy Go golf cart lease. All in favor, just raise your hand, please. Okay, 10 for, 1 against, so it passes. Number 13, I have simply written down funds for the 19th to repair the 19th hole. So to begin with, Ms. Fertel, I guess you're going to do that. Please put it in the form of a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we spend $112,000 to repair the 19th hole from the damage from Hurricane Zeta. There was ceiling tiles, walls, flooring that was damaged. As you stated earlier, the insurance company says there's over $100,000 worth of damage in the clubhouse, and they're only giving us $32,000.
Okay.
So my motion is for $112,000 to put the 19th hole back into operation.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Tozan seconds this. Now, any further discussion?
I got a quick question. So has the 19th hole been out of commission?
It's temporarily set up in part of the dining room.
Okay. Because I know, I remember, wasn't it not the ceiling, but that outside part that had to get replaced right away?
It was temporarily fixed so that it
Okay.
would close up. It was open to the elements.
Right, okay. Do we have, what walls were damaged? I mean, I'd like to get a list of what items were damaged and need to be fixed, so on and so forth, if carpet needs to be replaced and all of that. That would be nice to see.
Okay, I don't have that right here to give you.
Okay, because I'm trying to figure out where the 112,000 comes from, that's why. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? This is a.
Have
Go
we
on.
gotten any bids?
We have one bid so far.
And is that making any changes in the 19th hole, or just putting it back the way it was?
Minor changes.
When you say minor, what do you, in other words, we're leaving that wall when you walk down that hallway?
No, that wall's going to come half down so that you can see out into the bar.
Are you going to lower the ceiling from that cathedral ceiling?
That is still up, that has not been determined. That doesn't generate any revenue lowering that ceiling in the 19th hole.
Well, I've been led to believe that the heating and cooling bill would be dramatically less.
It's not dramatic.
Just wait, I'll finish and then you can comment. I don't know if it's dramatic or not, but if you lowered that thing, that it would reduce the cost of heating and cooling.
I agree, but it's not dramatic.
You also have to deal with the fire suppression system if you start.
Correct.
Depending on what you're talking about. So that can be really expensive.
That whole area is operating in a temporary environment right now and needs to get back to where it should be. That is our revenue generator, is the 19th hole in the dining room. And we need to get that back to where it's generating the revenue it should be generating.
Are we changing the entrance to the 19th hole at all?
No, you're still going to come into the bar like you did.
The same way we always did?
Yes.
That depends which way you came in.
What?
That depends which way you came in.
But you know what I'm talking about.
No, I'm not sure, honestly. That's why I'm asking. You talking about it from the main
If you
hall
If you come in through the main door,
in the front?
you got that wall. You know, we got an opportunity here to have that open. Just cutting it off doesn't take care of the problem of how uninviting that is to take a left and go around past all the stuff that's in the bar. It's, you know, we're spending this money, let's spend it wisely.
I understand that, but we don't have the luxury of spending all the money that original plan called for.
I don't think we have to do the original plan, but I think we can do it and do it wisely and still get it done for the amount of money.
Really, really quick, I would just love to see the bids as they come in and what that scope of work includes, because with construction, as they start removing things or whatever, I mean, we have to also account for costs that may come up that we didn't count on.
Correct.
So I'm not opposed to it. I just want to see what we've got going on and what we need to do to get it operational.
It'd be nice to see what you want to get done for this 112,000 on a spreadsheet or a drawing or something, whether you're going to knock down that entrance wall, lower the ceiling or not, or move things around, whatever.
You know, Teresa, I agree with you. We need to get the 19th hole back open, but while we're doing it, we need to do it right.
There was,
That's going to cost a whole lot more money. I can tell you, it's,
so the wall, as you walk in from the main entrance and you walk down there, are we talking about taking the wall down completely that you see at the end of the hall?
not completely, halfway down.
So the bar would not expand to the front side?
We could at a later time with that wall down. And the other wall is damaged. The wall between the 19th hole and the bar is also damaged. That has to come down and be fixed.
I'd like to suggest we at least get a scope of work and have an emergency meeting if we need to bring this to a conclusion, but I don't think we have enough information to vote wisely.
Okay?
So it's okay, somebody will just table it, and then if we can get the information that we're talking about, we can call a special call meeting if we have to get something started?
Okay.
Is that okay? Need you to make that motion to table it.
I make the motion to table it.
Second, I don't think you need any discussion on that. Okay, the next thing I have, it says name change for the club building.
The motion is to change it from the Country Club to be known as the Club at Diamond Head. In your packet, there was a sample of logos and colors. Do not get hung up on the colors. Nothing has been decided. This sample is to show you the name change from the Country Club to the Club at Diamond Head. And the reason we're asking for this change now, it's not a complete rebranding, but we're working on updating websites. And that part of the name change has to be done with the website now.
Did your
The focus group is the one that came up with the recommendations.
Hold up, Mrs.
sorry.
Benoni, hold up. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Tozan seconds the motion. Now we're discussion.
Sorry, Aaron. Did your country club, did your club committee, were they in favor of this?
Yes.
I personally, I think it's a good idea because we'd be surprised at how many people we run into who think we have a real country club thing, which denotes a lot of exclusivity and so forth, and we're not that. We've never been that.
Yeah.
Okay, and just by going to the club at Diamond Head, I think we take away some of those issues from some people's point of view.
Right. I think people are always going to call it the club, the club, the club. We just want to try to take the country part of it out.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay,
I agree with you.
call for a vote. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, do we have anybody who wants to speak on a non-agenda item?
Yes, we have Miss Sharon Settle.
Okay, Ms. Settles?
Ma'am, just to let you know, you'll see a yellow light come on. You say you got 30 seconds left to your 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm not gonna take that long, I hope.
Ms. Settles, you do need to pull that thing in right in front of you, and if you kind of speak into it as best you can, it's helpful to us.
Okay, I'm
Thank
Sharon
you.
Settle. I'm a 22-year resident of the Oaks, and I attended a meeting at the Compliance Committee on November 17th, and I felt was very biased. When I left the room, then came back in the room, it was mostly an attack on me as president of the Oaks, as well as my board, and it was not a board issue. This is a personal issue of mine. I have neighbors living next door to me. She invited a friend of hers to move in about 2 years ago. This friend does not pay attention to any of the laws or bylaws and covenants, and it keeps me up at night. By 11:30 at night, talk radio or TV is on. It's all talk. It's nothing like music. And our houses are very close together, carports. And this starts at 11:30 at night. It ends about 4:35 in the morning, mostly 7 nights a week. I've talked to these people several times. I even went over there and, tried to resolve the issue. You can't resolve it because they, just continue doing this. So I went to Ginger Nee case, and she fined them, or had the committee or whatever fine them, and then they had a meeting at the compliance committee, and the fines were taken away. So they have the right now to continue making noise. This person that moved in has no vested interest in the Oaks or Diamond Head. They came from Carolina, and they own no property here, and they're disrupting and impacting my health and my quality of life. I moved here for the quality of life and had a good quality of life for 20 years, and now I've had this to deal with. So I'm asking the board to reissue the fines, or at least give Ginger Nee case the ability to warn them if they get another complaint, the fines will then be reinstated, because the noise really has to stop. This is going on too long, and the people they had were their friends who came in and lied and attacked the POA and me. And by the way, I do want to say, because I was mocked when I said it was a baseless case, the case is dismissed. They couldn't even come up, the people that sued and the members of the community couldn't even come up with the main reason they were suing. No evidence of that, so it was thrown out. So this is a group that hangs with those people and associates with them. So I'm asking the committee to please help me with this. I mean, the board.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Settles.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening. Thank you.
That's it, isn't it? Anything else? Okay, we need,
I'm not on the list, but I wrote this, I came in late, I'm sorry. Is that possible?
yeah, come on. We'll do the 3 minutes, though. Could you tell us your name, please?
John Curry.
John Curry?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, thank you for indulging me. I've sat here through, this is my first board meeting. I've owned property here since the 70s. I just recently bought a little condo so I could land here and decide what I wanted to do to build either on the land that I own or buy something. And in sitting through this board meeting, the one thing that came through to me is is the insurance issues that I've heard on every avenue. I mean, I can't believe we're underinsured, that the insurance company has given us $30,000 for $100,000 damage. So something has to be done about that going forward. I don't know what your process is for RFPs for insurance, or who dealt with the adjusters, because they're in mind to give you as little as possible on your insurance claims, okay? but you have to work the adjuster. There's people that do that. So that's very disturbing to me. And that's all I have to say. I'll be at further board meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will tell you, Mr. Sharp, the attorney, knows an individual who's already been contacted who deals with that kind of stuff, okay, to help us, whatever the term, renegotiate the thing. So, yes, it is being worked on. So, okay?
But either we're underinsured or they're underpaying, one of the two.
Being underinsured isn't the problem. Part of the problem is, as you will find out when you start buying property and trying to insure it, is that you have a 2 to 3% deductible depending on the company. And that's what is part of the problem. If you have $5 million worth of insurance and we got a $100,000 claim, you can see what the problem is. That's your deductible.
Well, I
Okay.
understand insurance, okay?
We'll be happy, Mr. Curry, we'll be happy to talk to you, or Mr. Abbott's sitting right behind you, or I'll talk to you, and we can go from there. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Thank you very much.